In part 3 of Dreamquest, every official Sega Dreamcast game ever released in release order, we'll be covering March 25th, 99 to July 8th, 99. The wait for the Dreamcast in the West continues and the Japanese release schedule is heating up. Warning, in the first half of this video we'll be going deep Japanese. Witness a hapless monolingual Westerner wandering out into a labyrinth of Japanese strategy games, virtual board games, and horse racing sims armed only with Google, a massive vape pen, and his own guile, wits, and resourcefulness.
Does anyone here speak English?
Think of it as the gaming equivalent of an episode of Bear Grylls Man vs. Wild, only the information you receive in this video will be of more practical use.
Yeah, look, bees. Go away. Been quite a brute of a bee sting, this.
The second half of this vid will be much more Western centric, but until then, strap yourselves in and prepare for some complete and utter nonsense. Romance of the Three Kingdoms 6, Awakening of the Dragon, is the sixth installment in Koei's famous Romance of the Three Kingdoms series. In this game, you assume the role of a ruler, historic or of your own creation, as you manage your kingdom, officers diplomatic relations and economy, drafting troops and waging war, all in a bid to unite China under your flag. Characters and events in Romance of the Three Kingdoms 6 are inspired by the namesake novel written in the Ming Dynasty, 14th century, by famous Chinese author Liao Guanzong. Events in Romance of the Three Kingdoms are, in majority, based on historic government records from the Three Kingdoms era of Chinese history, a chaotic period marred with civil war as famous warlords fought amongst themselves for control of China, and further romanticised through storytelling, folklore and the mind of a brilliant author. I used to play a bit of Romance of the Three Kingdoms on the PS2. It was number 8, if I remember correctly, and I did enjoy it. I really liked the atmosphere and the bucolic Chinese vibe. The graphics were very low-tech by PS2 standards, but there was some lovely 2D sprite artwork with lots and lots of texture. It was certainly a lot more visually interesting than this earlier iteration, unfortunately. This really does look like a 16-bit game to me, although fans of the series probably didn't care one jot about that at the time. There's a nice pre-rendered intro and some very lovely music. But it does appear very basic compared with later editions of the game. This was released for PS1 in English, but unfortunately it was not released in the West for Dreamcast, so I don't have a cat in hell's chance of playing much of this one. Wheat sheaf. Music changes. Some horses there. If you did fancy giving this game a try, I'm afraid I would have to recommend picking up the Steam version as it's in English. Unless you speak Japanese, of course, in which case you're fine. Go ahead. Nobunaga's Ambition, Tales of Storms, is the 8th title in the Nobunaga no Yabo series, released February 99 for Windows 95, with ports for Macintosh, PlayStation, Dreamcast and PSP made later, and a remake released in 2006 for Nintendo DS. Okay. Triforce, Mr. Mustachio. This edition is a strategy class game that simulates soldiers' experiences during the chaotic Warring States period. Internal Affairs is a section of the castle where you can view the progress of various facilities developed beneath. The soldiers participate in combat where the size of the battlefield fluctuates based on how many troops are involved. There is a concept known as daimyo prestige, which signifies the Sengoku daimyo's authority and power. From Izo in the north to Satsume in the south, the player assumes the role of a Sengoku daimyo with the goal of conquering all 40 castles in Japan. The console versions are not completely identical as some content has been cut. As I said earlier, there was a time when I was actually quite into koi games. It was during the PS2 era. I had Kessen 2 and 3, Romance of the Three Kingdoms 8, and also Dynasty Tactics 2, I believe. I do like these kinds of games, although later versions of them are more aesthetically pleasing than these two. Anyway, how does it play? Well, again, I've got fucking no chance, really. If you're into this series and wanted to play it, again, I would have to recommend the PC version, as apparently, as well as being in Japanese, the console versions have some content cut.
Sega. Enjoy your fishing. Select the lure. Select the casting point.
Sega Bass Fishing. Ah yes, an arcade fishing video game developed in 1997 by Sega for the Sega Model 3 arcade hardware. Motor out to 8 different fishing locations to catch the biggest and baddest bass possible. Choose between 14 different lures and compete in 4 tournaments. Start off as an amateur and work your way up to the pros in the Master Classic tournament. Get hooked or get fucked. I made that last bit up. This game was an early title on the Sega Dreamcast and was compatible with the Sega Fishing controller. It sold well and became one of the few Sega All-Stars titles. The Sega Dreamcast port includes a practice mode and a tournament mode, where players can unlock more lures. In addition to the arcade game's 4 stages, 4 new stages are also included. Each stage can be played with different fishing conditions, such as the season, weather, and time of day. The PC version of the game released in 2001 was based on the Dreamcast version. I had a good time playing this. It's fun and it's hilarious. The joyful abandon of many of these Sega arcade hits is still a breath of fresh air today. With so many games these days, you can just feel the gears turning as you're playing them. Everything is so ludicrously expensive, focus grouped and laboured. In contrast, the sense of enthusiasm in these games is just infectious. It seems like the developers were just having fun. Imagine that, making their games. They didn't seem to give a fuck at all, really, and just went about their business farting out these little mini masterpieces that frequently involved taking incredibly mundane tasks to quite ludicrous heights. I'm thinking of this and Crazy Taxi in particular. Good times, man, good times. Enjoy your fishing.
Turn the rod left. You're home instead. Turn the rod right. Turn the rod left. Be careful. This one's huge. Rank in. Terrific. You've cleared all the areas.
Digital Kaiba Shinbun : My Trackman. When I think of horse racing, I always think of John McCurrick picking his nose and eating it on Big Brother. But this game has demonstrated to me that there's actually quite a bit more to it. I mean, this is quite an amusing title to behold, I think. So again, I really don't have much of a chance of playing this one, but I can show it to you and tell you what it's all about. This is a 1999 simulation game by Shoei System for the Sega Dreamcast. It simulates an off-road track betting station, allowing users who are connected to the internet to bet on horse races from home. The service lasted a year and a half. Shoei System went bankrupt and shut the service down on 1st of October 2000. The game may also be a standalone horse racing sim, although according to the Interslice, this is unconfirmed. This got 75 based on a single review and did not set the world on fire. We'll have a much better time when it comes to horse racing a little further along the trail on our magnificent Dreamquest. There are some hilarious little horse racing gems lying in wait, I promise. Web Mystery. This one's really interesting, actually, in my opinion. Info is quite scarce on this game, but let me read you this quite clearly Google-translated blurb for you.
A bizarre tale as a murder takes place on screen only to be witnessed the next day. Blends the border between reality and fantasy cleverly a la Perfect Blue, and the action soon shifts to Korea. Matching its breakneck broadband speed with the pacing of the plot, K is a computer engineer. One day he walks into an internet bar. As he is checking his emails, he notices an unknown email with an attachment. That takes him to a site called Cat's Eyes. There he sees a movie of a man being killed. Not giving it a second thought, he dismisses that as a game to pass time. Next day, he sees the exact same murder on the TV news. Moby, most of the game is happening on a fictional OS desktop where you can further access predefined set of applications. Web lets you access 18 different web channels with over 150 home pages which contain various things and minigames, some to move the story forward, some just to create more believable atmosphere. Mail system keeps all the received emails, notifying you of new ones and those you read, with ability to delete them if you wish. Data application consists of files and movies. It lets you watch all the movies you have seen so far. The remaining applications are more system-oriented. Config lets you change game configuration, field, speed, sound, and screen, and the file application is used to save or load a save game file. Moby.
Thank you, Matthew, that was seamless. I kinda love FMV games, even the shit ones. I love the crappy Mega CD FMV games, and I especially like the X-Files game on PC, which this game actually resembles quite a bit from what I can see. It's quite nicely shot, actually. And the game itself seems to be filled with detail as you wade through reams of faux web pages and video clips. It has tons of atmosphere, a cool soundtrack. I really wanted to play this one, and I want someone far more skilled and capable than I am to translate it for me, please. This one has a score of 71 based on 3 reviews. Redline Racer is a motorbike racing game released exclusively in Japan for the Dreamcast. Well, it's sort of exclusive anyway. This game was significantly updated and granted a license by Suzuki for its release in the West, becoming I don't know how to pronounce that. Suzuki All-Star Extreme Racing. Developed by Criterion, who would later make one of my favourite racing games of all times, Burnout 2. What a fucking legendarily awesome game that was. I sat for hours with my mates smoking weed on a giant ceramic bong shaped like a wizard back in 2002-ish, I guess. Good times, man, good times. Kind of. Anyway, I really like super fun, if derivative racing games like Moto Racer on the PC, and I was quite looking forward to playing this one actually, but it falls a little bit short in my opinion. I know it has its fans, especially on the PC. I'm assuming this version is a bit of a downgrade, as all I can see here is a competent arcade racer. The graphics are kind of dirgy, the handling is a little bit stiff, and all the objects on the track are a pain in the arse. I did enjoy the straight-up track racing though, and I must admit that I did not spend a huge amount of time with it. I mean, there's nothing wrong per se with it, it's just a bit generic and uninspiring for me. Later on, we will take a look back at the Western release, which apparently is a lot better.
A situation down there. Some modern-day pirates have hijacked a huge cruiser. They're holding 2,000 hostages inside, including the president's daughter. We have to invade the ship, clear the pirates, and rescue the hostages, especially the president's daughter.
Dynamite Cop, known as Dynamite Decker 2 in Japan, is a beat-em-up game created by Sega AM1. It was released for all three versions of the Sega Model 2 arcade hardware in '98, the only game to run on all Model 2 boards, before subsequently being ported to the Dreamcast the following year. It's a sequel to Die Hard Arcade, though unlike its predecessor lacks the Die Hard film license. It was soon followed up by Asian Dynamite. I actually had a Sega Naomi 2 arcade system hooked up to a Supergun about 10 years ago or so, and I really wish the HMRC hadn't sent me an erroneous overdue tax fine back then, because I had to sell it, and Asian Dynamite fucking rocks. Anyway, I'm digressing, that is not this game. Dynamite Cop is largely the same game as Die Hard Arcade, really. However, instead of taking over a skyscraper, Wolf Hongo and his group of modern-day pirates hijack a cruise liner, and three protagonists are tasked with saving the president's daughter. Bruno Dellinger returns, but Cindy Holiday does not, in standard versions of the game at least, instead being replaced by two new characters, Gene Ivy and Eddie Brown. The biggest change in Dynamite Cop is probably the ability to face an attack in 8 directions as opposed to only 2. It's also less realistic, if you will, than its predecessor, and the superior technical specifications of the Model 2 and Dreamcast hardware led to higher quality graphics and sound. This game kinda speaks for itself, really, you can see it right there. It's very good fun. Twatting people about the head and face with mops, loaves of bread, apples and bazookas is a guaranteed good time, really, isn't it? I played it with my wife once, actually, but I didn't like the bit at the end where we had to fight to the death and I was forced to leather her. Probably caused a bit of tension, in retrospect. Surprisingly, this one only has a 62 on Sega Retro, and I think that's a bit harsh. There isn't a great deal of content here, sure, but what there is very entertaining indeed. It probably falls a little bit short of the original Die Hard Arcade, in my opinion, but it's a very solid game, and comes with my hearty recommendation. Elemental Gimmick Gear is a 1999 action RPG for the Dreamcast by Hudson Soft and birthday. 100 years ago, in an unnamed fantasy world, archaeologists are excavating the ancient ruins known as Fogner. Things go routinely until they happen to unearth a small, rather mech-like vehicle that resembles a knight. The discovery becomes even more intriguing when a sleeping man is found inside. All attempts at reviving him fail, so the so-called sleeper is consigned to the research lab of nearby East Tokian town. Meanwhile, the sleeper's mech, dubbed Elemental Gimmick Gear, is the object of intense scrutiny. The initial clones that are created are house-sized monstrosities, but eventually the technology is mastered and man-sized EGGs become common. Fast forward 100 years to 3 lone figures walking among the Fogner ruins. They enter a cave at the back of which is some kind of machinery. Upon approaching it, it accidentally activates and all hell breaks loose. Huge tentacles erupt from Fogner and rip throughout the countryside, wreaking havoc and destroying everything in their path. 3 weeks pass. Much of the world is now rubble, and no one knows the meaning or origin of the destructive tentacles. There is one small hope though, for today the mysterious sleeper has opened his eyes. This is just what you want from a kind of hidden gem Dreamcast game in my opinion. We didn't get it in the UK, I only caught wind of it probably in the early 2000s when browsing through the internet and that kind of thing. And it's a fascinating title. The mix of cell animation and CG is unusual, but you have to admit it looks pretty damn cool. It has a very unique art style and the 3D sections are pretty nifty as well. I could really feel myself getting drawn in by this one, and I would probably play it to completion if it wasn't for this Sisyphean task I have set for myself. This one has a 75 on Sega Retro. I think it might have proven a bit too off-kilter for some reviewers. I think it's a very interesting and engaging game though. Extreme Racer, called Shotoku Battle in Japan and Tokyo Highway Challenge in Europe, is a 1999 racing game for the Sega Dreamcast. While Shotoku Battle's roots date back to 1994 with the release of Drift King Shotoku Battle 94 on the Super Famicom, my god that was a long sentence, Western localization has been sporadic and inconsistent. Tokyo Extreme Racer was the second such game to be released outside of Japan, following Tokyo Highway Battle on the PlayStation in 1996. Being a launch title for the Dreamcast, this is likely the most well-known entry in the franchise to this point. I love the look and the sound of this game. Anyway, what do? Well, you drive around Japan's gleaming highways at night.
Cruising for a piece of ass.
No, kind of searching for a worthy opponent to race against, of course. When you meet one of them, you give them a quick flash, and a race ensues. Once you've won a race, you can use the money earned to upgrade your car. Eventually, you'll have an absolute beast, and you can go around battering everyone in various regions of Tokyo. It's kind of like a driving RPG, really, and it's cool. I've played the second Tokyo Highway Battle quite extensively and really enjoyed it, although the pace is rather slow at times. The second one does have better tunes than this one, in my opinion. This is very J-pop, Euro-dancey sort of stuff, and it's a little bit bollocks as far as I'm concerned, but hey, you can't have everything, can you? It's important to note that the cars here don't really turn, at first at least. Fortunately, they also don't flip over, which is very handy indeed because you'll be slamming them into barriers at regular intervals. I do dig these games. Back in the days when I could sit around for days on end getting stoned and playing these things, I would have really got into this one, I think. This only has 61 based on 25 reviews according to Sega Retro, and I do remember the reviews being mediocre in the UK back in the day too. But I think these scores are a bit unfair, again. This one is still pretty unique, in my opinion, both aesthetically and in gameplay terms, unless you count the other games in the series, of course, and it's definitely one of the best driving games on Dreamcast for my money. The sequel is an improvement though. Expendable is a run-and-gun video game that was released by Rage Software for Microsoft Windows in '99. It was later ported to the Dreamcast and PlayStation consoles. It takes place sometime in a post-apocalyptic future where most of the galaxy was conquered by a hostile alien race. To combat the aliens, scientists had to develop a Millennium Soldier project by cloning 2 super soldiers. Like most top-down run-and-gun video games, Expendable has collectible upgrades and weapons and features common aspects like bosses and a wide variety of levels. Another feather in the Dreamcast's cap was its ability to handle PC ports with relative ease due to its elegant architecture, its Windows CE operating system, and of course its sheer power. The developer of MDK2, Greg Zishok,
Clark W. Grisman,
had this to say on the matter. First and foremost, we're working with a single system. We don't have the problem of multiple system configurations, different video cards and processors as seen in the PC market. Also, the Dreamcast hardware is quite comparable to state-of-the-art PC hardware. Currently, the Dreamcast version of MDK2 is equivalent to a Pentium 3 500 with a Riva TNT2 graphics card. Also, the video subsystem has excellent visual quality. I'd say the image quality is probably better than anything on PC at the moment. This turned out to be a pretty rich vein of software for the noisy little white box, and playing PC games was pretty novel for consoles back then, believe it or not. And there ain't many games more PC-ish than Expendable. So what do? Well, basically you run around and blow shit up. Aesthetically, I think this game is rather ugly, but I have to admit it's very good fun to play. It actually plays a bit like a 2D spaceship shooter in some ways. Playing it now, you're almost begging for a second analog stick at first, but once you learn to lock the direction with the right trigger, it works very well. I think if this had been done with the art style of something like Loaded on the PS1, for example, I would have liked it a good deal more. But it is a very good game. It's very, very PC, and it's very, very Western. This received 65 based on 27 reviews, and I think that's a bit harsh too. This plays very well to this day. King of Fighters Dream Match 99 is a remake and port of King of Fighters 98, which was released for the Dreamcast on June 24th, 99 in Japan, and on September 30th, 99 in North America. Because the Sega Saturn was declining in Japan and was no longer distributed in North America and Europe, Sega made an agreement with SNK to produce a version of the game on the Dreamcast console. However, this was not released in Europe. This game is compatible with the Neo Geo Pocket, which allows you to transfer stats between it and the King of Fighters R2. This version runs at 60 frames per second and contains a rearranged soundtrack and backgrounds remodelled in 3D, as well as additional features such as concept galleries and sound test modes. There are several other minor changes as well. Is there anything better than twatting people in the comfort of your own living room entirely free from consequence? Wow, that guy back there really needs a piss. The graphics appear to rotate, but they're not made of polygons. It's pre-rendered in some way, I guess? I don't know, someone more technically minded than me will be able to answer that question, I'm sure. That being said, it blends better than the polygon backgrounds you saw in later games in my opinion. It resembles Toy Story on the Mega Drive to my eye. This one is pretty good. It received 74 based on 11 reviews, and fans of King of Fighters will enjoy it, no doubt. Giant Gram Wrestling. It's mad, it's gay, and it's very entertaining. If you've ever wanted to see guys in Lycra getting seized from behind, then here's your chance. Giant Gram is a wrestling game developed by Scarab and published by Sega for the Dreamcast. It is a sequel to Zen Nihon Pro Wrestling featuring Virtua, and like that game, features characters from Virtua Fighter. It was only released in Japan, and that's a bit of a shame because it's good fun. This was the first Naomi game to offer support for VMUs, therefore allowing data to be transferred to and from the Dreamcast version. Virtua Fighter characters. Big Gay Barry. Look at the legs on that.
さあ、試合開始のゴングが鳴りました。2戦目にいきなりタウエの登場だ。ダイナミックにどう立ち向かう。さあ、注目していきましょう。ハイキックを放っていった。切り返していった。ぐっと耐えます。ロープに振って。5分経過、5分経過、5 minutes、5分、残り時間1分、1 minute left。振っていく。試合終了。引き分けのゴングが鳴りました。田上彰に敗れ去りました。
This game looks really pretty slick for 99 in my opinion, and it is damn fun to play, as you can probably see from the footage here. It received 81 based on 10 reviews, and I would definitely recommend giving this one a try. It's a really good laugh.
反戦に勝ちました。
Buggy Heat, called TNN Motorsports Hardcore Heat, in the US is a '99 racing game by CRI for the Sega Dreamcast. Drive one of these ultimate off-road machines in a variety of exciting racing environments. There are 3 modes to attempt, including a 13-round World Championship, a 2-player option and a time attack option, where your aim is to top the rankings boards for the fastest lap on each of the circuits. In addition, you can visit the Buggy Heat website and compare your times against other players and download shadow cars to compete against. Come for a ride with me in my girly mobile.
3, 2, 1, go!
I like this game. The cars have a really pleasing weight, and there's a real sense of rivalry between you and the drivers. So many racing games, particularly these days, are anonymous. You don't know who you're racing against, and you don't really care. But this almost has a wacky races vibe to it, and it's fun trying to get revenge on the guy who knocked you off the course in the last race. You don't have to be note perfect with this racing game. It rewards a slightly more methodical, patient, and resilient approach. I like the AI too. You can frequently see other drivers struggling, and it just gives it a sort of organic feel that you don't see very often in racing games. Very good tunes, quite nice graphics, although it's a bit dim for some reason, and yeah, it's a good game. In fact, it's one of my favourite Dreamcast races. This only received 65 based on 23 reviews. It's underrated in my book. Give it a whirl.
Checkpoint!
So we've reached the end of part 3 of the Dreamquest. That there was a very solid selection of sort of B-tier Dreamcast games in my opinion, with a number of really underappreciated games. There are some very heavy hitters just around the corner as we approach the epic marketing campaign surrounding the Western release date. Take care of yourself guys, thanks for watching, and please remember...
Enjoy your fishing.